on Rambling About Cars. We have the LA Auto Show in full effect. It's starting November 18th, which is right now as this podcast goes live. So we have lots to talk about. Major debuts, we've got them all from Toyota, Porsche, Subaru, Lucid, maybe some smaller debuts. And also this time I remembered to unmute my microphone before I started to talk. So apologies last week you didn't get to hear Rambling About Cars, but without further ado, it's podcast time. I am Christopher Smith, and Mr. Chris Bruce is across the way. LA Auto Show, man, this is turning out to be pretty big. I think it's bigger than
be a big. It keeps making me think how small this year's Detroit Auto Show was.
Oh, I was thinking that too.
Yeah,
I was totally thinking that. It's like if I was an official at the Detroit Auto Show, I'd be feeling maybe a little uncomfortable, a little hurt. LA is getting a lot of attention here, some major debuts, but in Detroit's defense, this was the first year really for their new format. Right. So, hey, we'll take a look, see how it goes. I think the show was a pretty good format, indoors and outdoors. I think it's a good time of year. So maybe next year will be bigger, but
yeah, the format's in it. It's just that they didn't get that much support. And you're probably right that just, they had those, they had an off year and then they had 2 years of COVID and then they came back. So it kind of, it's always hard to come back after something like that. So,
right. Let's talk about LA today.
Let's do that. Yes.
Let's talk about LA, and yeah, quite a few debuts that have happened. Let's start with probably the biggest that people want to know about, Toyota.
Definitely the biggest.
We have a brand new Toyota Prius.
We do. And it's the best looking Prius ever? Question mark.
You know what? On social, I've been seeing a lot of that on social. I've been seeing a lot of people saying, wow, this is like the first time in forever that they haven't made it uglier. I mean, I've seen quite a few comments like that. I don't think the outgoing generation was that bad, but this new one, I think it looks really good.
It does look really good on the outside.
It looks really good.
And honestly, the interior looks good too, but the exterior is just like, that's a Prius,
Well, tell us all about it, Bruce, because this was kind of a tricky one because Toyota, they debuted the Euro spec and Japanese model ahead of the US debut. I mean, it's still pretty much the same car, but if you could, just go ahead and tell us what you know, because I think there's more interesting going on here than just the looks.
Oh, totally. So real quick, vamp for me for just a half a second here while I get the photos up, talk about how it looks. And it's such an attractive car. Well,
I mean, I remember the first time I saw a Prius, it wasn't the first generation, it was the second generation. And I was like,
well, most people saw.
Yeah, it's like, well, this is just kind of weird. And then you get inside and it didn't look like anything else inside because the speedometer was in the middle of the dash. And they were definitely going for hey, this isn't a normal car. It doesn't have a normal powertrain. This is how things are going to be. And there were the people that liked it, and there were people that, and Toyota kind of stuck with that throughout the Prius generation. Until now, this one feels like, okay, maybe the rest of the world has caught up to what the Prius was doing, and now the Prius can just kind of be normal and cool.
Yep. So going through it, and like you were saying, this is a big change for the Prius. The new model, it rides on Toyota's TNGA. That's what they call the Toyota New Generation Architecture, the C platform. They use that for sizes. They have A, B, C, and then on up. But what's interesting is that the wheelbase is 2 inches longer, but the overall length is just a hair under 2 inches shorter. So they extended the wheelbase, but they made the overall length small. Made the overall length smaller. So you're going to get more space inside and a vehicle that just kind of looks sportier because you have those wheels pushed out to the edges of the body. Also, width is, just about 2 inches wider, a hair under that as well. So it's really interesting proportions. It looks so good. Toyota also talked about the apex of the roof is farther back in the design, and you can really see that in the photos. So the highest part of the roof is kind of midway around the rear door rather than being kind of right in the middle of the rear door or anything like that. And so that pushes the visual weight of the vehicle back, not the actual weight, but visually it looks like a lot more of the weight is back there, and it makes it look like so much of a sporty vehicle. The front end, it has what Toyota keeps calling its hammerhead design language, the headlights there, which are, it's got like a kind of an arc that goes along the nose, and then it comes up and it comes back in. It's actually a very hard thing to write about because it's a hard thing to say in words. It's kind of a bracket shape with kind of a connector in the middle, but when you say that, it sounds really weird. So I've been struggling to write about that this week as we talk about this vehicle. Just a super attractive design. You can see here the rear door handles are hidden in the pillar, which is something we see on other vehicles, but is always an interesting design because it gives you a much cleaner shape to the rear door. Just a pretty vehicle.
I think it's cleaner overall. It doesn't have quite as many jarring angles, I think, that we've seen on previous cars.
Yes.
I know we talked about this last week a little bit. Maybe it's a little more sophisticated in some ways. I sometimes hate to use that word. What people don't necessarily get right away that I think really deserves a specific mention and a look. The front of the car, the way the hood and the windshield are just raked back, it has a seriously raked look to it, which just makes it look lower, sleeker, leaner. And it's not raked in like a weird way like we've seen on some other vehicles. Sophisticated, but maybe even a little aggressive with some of its language. It's a very different Prius on the outside, and it's also different on the inside because you have what passes for nowadays as a pretty standard interior. You have your digital driver display that's in front of the steering wheel right there for the driver, plus a large center screen. The interior, it's not what I would call a minimalist interior.
Yeah. So Toyota calls this their island architecture. And the reason they call it that is because there are three separate areas. You've got digital driver display, you've got infotainment display, and you've got the HVAC stuff in kind of three separate areas. And honestly, if you look at the new BZ4X or a vehicle we're going to be looking at here in a second, which is their BZ Concept, they have this exact same design language on the interior. I really want to drive a vehicle like this because I'm curious about glare on that instrument display. Because if you think about most vehicles you drive, there's a surround around them. They're embedded inside the dashboard. And what that allows is that it means no matter where the sun's hitting, it's not going to hit it and cause a glare, and you're not going to be able to see how fast you're going or something like that. This design doesn't have that. It just kind of sprouts up out of the dashboard. And what Toyota says is that it offers better visibility because you're not looking down, you're kind of looking more forward, and you see this display. But also I wonder, depending on the conditions, whether if you hit the sun just right, if it's going in at the right angle, whether it just washes that display out. So
it's a good point.
It's not a complaint necessarily. I just want to drive a vehicle like this because I want to know. Because if you get the brightness right, then it's not going to be an issue. If it's bright enough, then it'll be fine.
I have to think that engineers probably examined that, but you never know. I've been on some media events where it's like, wow, did you guys not figure this out? It's like, I know this is technically.
Did you guys forget the sun existed?
Pre-production, so hey, yeah, I'm very interested to drive it. I think it's attractive inside and out, but there's another aspect that we haven't touched on yet. And we were talking about this a little bit today in our Teams chat. Is Toyota maybe not bragging, but kind of puffing its chest a little bit now about performance, not efficiency, which is what 57 miles per gallon, I think is what it's rated at. Not
57. Yeah, for front wheel drive, 57. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, they're not talking about performance efficiency wise. They're talking about acceleration.
Right. Yeah.
Where's that coming from?
That's interesting. But here, okay, I think the answer is yes and no. And so like Smith is saying that the standard hybrid model, it uses a 2-liter naturally aspirated 4-cylinder and an electric motor, and that will get you 0 to 60 in 7.2 seconds. What's total combined output for that setup is 194 horsepower. If you opt for the all-wheel drive setup, you get just a little bitty bit more power. You get 196 horsepower, but you get a kind of a not healthy. You get a bit faster to 0 to 60. That goes 0 to 60 in 7 seconds. Mm-hmm. The Prius Prime, which is the plug-in hybrid, that has 220 horsepower. That gets you 0 to 60 in 6.6 seconds. In the modern world, you and I, we talk a lot about muscle cars. We talk about stuff like that. 6.6 seconds, that's not neck breaking as compared to, your Hellcats or even like a hot hatch.
It's not slow either, though. It's
exactly.
not slow. There are any number of hot hatches that you could rattle off that are 60 miles an hour in the 6-second range that people would accept as sporty. And it's interesting that, I mean, Toyota made it a point. It felt like they made it. It felt like to me they made a point to talk about this.
Let's put it this
our new Prius Prime goes 0 to 60. Yeah.
Yeah, they put those numbers out, and what's important is that in previous releases they've kind of hid those things. Toyota's always put out tech specs about the Prius. All automakers do, but they weren't afraid to put it like right in the text and kind of flaunt it a little bit. It's clear they were kind of proud about these numbers. And in all honesty, they kind of should be. This is a vehicle that has kind of had a reputation. And if you look at the comments for this vehicle in our story, that people say, Prius drivers are terrible. They clog up the left lane or they drive slow or stuff like that. This is a vehicle that's not necessarily going to be slow. Is it going to be lightning quick? No, but it's not going to be slow. But it's still going to be super efficient. We're talking about a vehicle that we don't have all-wheel drive fuel economy specs yet, but we've got the 2 other models. For the front-wheel drive, they're expecting combined fuel economy of 57 miles per gallon. And for the plug-in hybrid, they're expecting nearly 38 miles purely on electric power. So that's a lot of people's commute that you could drive purely electrically and not even use the engine. And
when you want to use the engine, you can dip into the throttle and you're not going to necessarily be wanting for some excitement. 0 to 60 in 6.5 seconds. Yeah, we're jaded these days by cars doing 0 to 60 in like 2.5 and 3 seconds. Those are some insane numbers, some insane performance vehicles. This has an attractive, sporty looking daily that is still really efficient. I'm on board. I think it's a great look for Toyota. I think it's a great move,
man. Like, can you imagine? So, we don't have, the full fuel economy specs for the Prime, but even for the regular model, let's go with that. So let's say, for the all-wheel drive model, what did I say? 7.2, I think it is, 0 to 60.
All-wheel drive, 7. That 7 flat.
That's enough.
Oh, that's
For like most normal, you're not going to take it to the track, but that's never what a Prius was supposed to be unless you're the super GT car with the cool V8 and all that stuff. But
the Prius GT with the Lexus V8 that I didn't know about until you mentioned it today. So bravo, Bruce, you got one over on me. Yes, there was a Prius race car with a V8. Anyways, we should. Do we know anything about price or when it's going to come out?
We don't know anything about price. We know next year it's going to come out. first half of 2023. So not too long of a wait. You know, if you're in the market and you've got a vehicle that you like and you want to keep, you know, you don't have to replace it immediately, but you want something super efficient, you know, this
Coming
is
soon.
I couldn't say that this would be a bad choice. You know, I haven't driven one. You and I haven't driven one, but just purely on numbers on paper, 57 miles per gallon. Or for a plug-in hybrid, we don't know the full specs on that yet, but 38 miles on an electric, just purely electric, that seems pretty good. It's hard to argue with that.
I would agree. I would agree. We should probably keep going because we have a big list of vehicles. Bruce, do you want to keep it rolling with Toyota? Because we also have an interesting concept. Not a hybrid from Toyota that cropped up here at LA, and that's their BZ compact SUV concept.
That's exactly what it's called. And I need to pull up photos of that because I thought I had them up and my tab failed. I got to be honest.
And if you're listening on Spotify or Apple or Google or any of the dozen or so audio podcasts we're on, and you're wondering, pictures, how do I see pictures over audio? We also do this on YouTube, folks. Motor One Podcasts is our YouTube channel where you can see us, where you can see everything that we're talking about. You can see all my weird hand gestures because sometimes I get a little animated. More importantly, you can see the vehicles that we're talking about. And I mean, this concept, I've seen pictures of it. I haven't picked up many of the details yet. But I mean, it's BZ, right? I know there are a lot of people that aren't really happy with that naming nomenclature that Toyota is following. I've certainly made plenty of jokes about it. The Stormtrooper car. It's the BZ4X. What we're talking about there. But this concept, it's SUV. Do we know, Bruce? I mean, this is previewing something to come, correct?
It is. Well, they don't say that, but we think it is. So I'm sharing photos of it now. Yes, I am. Sorry, I was having some issues with the slideshow there.
No problem.
Toyota's press release never says that this is a vehicle that's going into production. When you look at it, though, and you read in the press release that they have 5 BZ models that they plan on putting into production, it's hard not to believe that this isn't one of them. So we already have the BZ4X, which is the electric crossover that's on sale in the United States now. We have the BZ3, which is exclusive to China, but is coming to Europe. US availability is still a very, very big question mark. And then we have this model here. And so, yes, this is the BZ compact SUV concept that we're showing photos of. And it looks like a BZ4X that's a little bit smaller, but with a little bit sharper styling. It's not quite as upright. It's not quite. I always use chiseled to kind of mean, kind of that muscular look. This has a lot more curves to it, but you can see similarities there. I don't.
I see that. More than similarities. I mean, they're okay. Maybe not more than similarity. It looks a lot like the BZ4.
So we have this rear image, and it has one of the most interesting. I love this weird, and I'm zooming in on it now. This weird periscope rear third brake light on it. Can you see that, Smith?
It's an odd way to
incorporate that. I said, the story, you would usually expect them to put that into the hatchback, into like the spoiler here on top of the hatchback.
That just kind of sticks up on the back of the roof.
They kind of made this weird periscope thing. I don't know what that's about, but it's kind of cool in a certain way.
Oops, we forgot something.
Yeah, maybe.
Give me some more sticky tape.
Yep. But yeah, it's a fairly attractive vehicle. I should say this is purely a styling concept for now. Toyota gave us no powertrain specifications about this vehicle, so we can't even speculate about that. Mm-hmm. But it is BZ. BZ stands for Beyond Zero. It is their family of electric vehicles that are on the way. as we know, BZ4X, BZ3, as I mentioned. Inside, it has a super, super minimalist interior that I wonder if this is what Toyota actually intends to put into production. Somehow I doubt it, but we'll see. So you can see here, it has this big, wide, almost yoke-like, but I guess it has a top, so it's not quite a yoke. It's kind of octagonal steering wheel. And then kind of like we were talking about the Prius and the BZ4X, it has this instrument display that doesn't have anything around it. It just kind of pops up out of, here's a better photo, it just kind of pops up out of the dashboard. Next to it, there is an infotainment display. And then there's just the super minimalist gear shift thing down at the bottom here. It's just it's just a row of buttons that you press. So nothing too fancy there. So just super minimalist on the outside, simple on the super minimalist on the inside, interesting on the outside. But yeah, I get the impression that this is what Toyota wants to do. Whether it looks exactly like this, we'll have to see. But I don't think it's on
the outside, I would say. Inside to me looks very much like a concept interior.
I agree.
I would be very surprised if that went into production, even kind of close to what we're seeing there. That just looks like a very futuristic concept. This vehicle is capable of level 4 or level 5, where you just, where like the wheel would fold up, fold in, and then everything on the dash would fold down, and that would become your table for playing cards while the car drives. That's what that interior strikes me as.
I agree. But I think we could get a version of that, because like we just saw in the Prius and in the BZ4X, where you have these displays that kind of pop up, not pop up literally, but kind of emerge from the dashboard. That seems to be where Toyota is going. But they're not going to have this kind of bent look to them. I don't think. I don't think that that's realistic. Or this just super minimalist center console where it's just kind of it just looks like I don't know, like a table almost with some buttons on it. I can't think of a better way to describe it than that.
Nope, I think that's a pretty good way to describe it.
Okay.
So more to come on that. Let's move on to something that's not nearly as spacey and futuristic. In fact, this kind of pulls on some heartstrings of historical racing.
It does.
We're talking about, drumroll, the 2023 Porsche 911 Dakar. This thing is
what car?
Awesome.
Oh, you're supposed to say that car, but yeah.
What was I supposed to say? Okay, that reference went over my head.
No, I was just. What car? Dakar. I'm sorry. It was a
Dakar.
Super bad pun.
Dakar,
I apologize.
Dakar. Okay, I thought you were. Okay.
No,
you know what?
I was doing bad.
What 90s commercial is this that you're quoting that I missed because I was too busy playing Tokyo Extreme Racer?
Just bad pun time.
No, say Porsche 911 Dakar. You've seen the spy photos. You've seen the teasers. This is Porsche's lifted 911. How much is it lifted, you say? It has I had it right in front of me, baby. A 2-inch lift. It's 2 inches over stock, but it also has Porsche's lift feature, which can add another 1.2 inches. So all total, this thing will be 3.2 inches in the air, and that is comparable to many. Yes. At maximum. That is comparable to many conventional SUVs, according to Porsche. And I mean, when you see it in the photo, it's definitely sitting up higher.
And I love what Porsche says about it. You can lift it at up to 105 miles an hour. What am I going to be driving 105 miles an hour? Oh my God, there's something I need to go over. I better lift it. Like
another. Well, I mean, it's a practical thing, right? Because this car has a top speed of 150 miles an hour. It's That's electronically limited to 150 because it's riding not on like P0 Michelin, blah, 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 Ultra Track, Pirelli. It actually has a custom set of Pirelli all-terrain tires made specifically for this car to drive on dirt, loose surfaces, but also on pavement. They're 19-inch tires in front on 19-inch wheels, 20 inches on the back. And yes, it will go up to 105 miles an hour in the high lift mode. Beyond that, it'll just drop back down and you can stay at your standard height, presumably going down the coolest rally road you've ever been on at speeds up to 150 miles an hour. Power, it has the 473 horsepower version of the 3-liter flat six, the twin turbo. That's pretty much the same as the 911 GTS. Of course, it has Porsche's 8-speed PDK transmission. Of course, yes, it's all-wheel drive. They give the car 2 new drive modes since it has all of this extra ground clearance and suspension work. Porsche didn't go into details, by the way, on the suspension. They talked about the lift and that it's tweaked a little bit. But you do get the extra height. You get 2 new drive modes. One is simply called off-road, and the other is called rally with an E on the end. RALLY.
Same thing, but okay.
Well, no. Here's the deal. Off-road, it automatically puts you up at the highest suspension setting, and it's designed more for off-road, getting over maybe some higher obstacles. Rally mode is really designed for more like loose surfaces, like you would. Like you would be in WRC competition, right? Going down a sketchy 2-track or something where, you're not expecting anything major to crop up. Off-road, I mean, Porsche was also describing like sand or something like that, where you might be getting a little bit deeper. That's just going to give you a little extra clearance. They also give it a cool new rally launch control that's designed for loose surfaces. You engage launch control, and it allows 20% wheel spin on the wheels. So you can just kind of, spin it up a little bit as you're getting traction on the loose surface. I would love to give that a try to see what that's like. It's got Porsche's dynamic suspension system. It's got the rear steering. Those are all standard items. Engine mounts. Just the engine mounts coming from the Porsche 911 GT3. It's got the same hood as the 911 GT3.
Yep.
And if just in case you're thinking, oh, this doesn't sound that different, Porsche on this car, you can get an optional roof tent or a rooftop cargo basket.
Which we're looking at now. Right now.
Yep. And it comes with built-in lights that actually plug in to help light the way.
Cool as hell, man.
Off-road. Oh, it totally does.
I don't care if it's functional or not, but I would just want that.
I mean, it's functional. Porsche says I think you can carry like 92 pounds up there. It's not a lot. The roof tent, obviously, it mounts up differently, so you can, be in the tent and not be 92 pounds.
Because I don't know a lot of adults that weigh 92 pounds.
Right. It's available. I mean, as you're seeing here, just a regular shade, but you can also get the rally design package, which gives you the 2-tone paint job, like the old Rothman style. That I think just looks fantastic. That's pretty much it for the tech specs. We do know that pricing, it is going to be expensive. It's right up there. We're talking Porsche 911 Turbo S money, $223,450. Which that's right up there. That's right up there with 911 Turbo S, GT3 RS. By comparison, because I mean, we said it's got the 473 horsepower engine from the GTS. If you get the Carrera 4 GTS with all-wheel drive, that engine transmission, that's $150,000. So you're stepping up quite a bit to get some of the off-road kind of mojo going, but I love it. I've always been a fan of things like that. And it's going to be rare, only 2,500 made for the entire world, and it reaches dealerships in the spring.
Yeah, that's real. I wish it didn't cost quite as much, but it's really cool. I love that kind of fixed wing they got at the back.
Yep, it's just a straight up fixed wing. They don't get too fancy with the arrow on this. You get some stainless steel additions on the outside just for a little more of a gruff off-road look. It's
Smith,
certainly
you and I are never going to be
capable.
able to afford one of these, but I like it.
I mean, I would say just wait for a few years, because I could probably afford a 996 if I wanted one right now. But this is never
Okay,
going to.
I could afford a 996 too.
This
You
is
and I,
never going to go that way. With only 2,500 and as many people out there are that love like the 911 Safaris. Yeah, you know what? 223,000 starting price is pretty steep. Porsche is going to sell every single one of these. They are going to sell every single one. That two-tone finish, I love the two-tone design that they offer on it. I love that they made special tires. Pirelli made special tires for it. I'm a big rally fan. I just want to get into this and rally all day long.
Yeah, I can't. I got no fight here. The people who've listened to the show know I'm a Porsche fan. That's kind of my dream brand, I guess. That I like this thing a lot. That's all I got to say. I like this thing a lot. I'll never be able to afford one. I'll never have one, but it's cool that they're making it. So
yep. Oh, and I forgot another very interesting tidbit for anybody that buys one of these.
Yes,
you're
sir.
eligible to then buy an exclusive Porsche design watch that is 911 Dakar themed for the watch fans out there. Sorry, it's a chronograph. The Porsche design Dakar 911 Dakar chronograph. Just hey, pub trivia. you never know. I love everything about that car. Porsche, keep being awesome.
Yep. So Smith, a slight audible here only because I have the photos up. Do you mind if we do Fiat next and then the other brand after that?
Not at all. Let's jump into Fiat.
Okay. So from a vehicle that you and I definitely can't afford to a vehicle you and I could probably conceivably afford is the new Fiat 500 electric. Hold on a second. I got to click around.
And if you're listening somewhere across the pond, you're like, what do you mean new Fiat 500 electric?
Exactly. Well, this debuted in 2020 for you European folks.
And it's at the LA Auto Show here because it's going to be offered in the United States.
Right. But not until the first quarter of 2024. So we got to wait a while.
So we still got to wait. And Fiat also said with this, basically the announcement for the LA Auto Show this year is that we're going to debut the production version for the US at next year's LA Auto Show.
Right.
So,
yes.
But hey, Fiat 500e, I remember when it first debuted, I might have even written the debut article on it a few years ago. I can't remember what I wrote yesterday, so I'm probably reaching a little bit. I think it's a natural progression for Fiat. I dig the car. I always rather like the little 500. I think it's a very good platform to go electric. And I think it could be a smart move for them to offer it over here, the Fiat 500e. But in addition to that, here at the LA Auto Show, for reasons I don't entirely understand, they have 3 one-off
special editions. Yes.
Yeah, that we're looking at right now.
So they have one by Armani. Smith, you and I both agree because we were talking about this beforehand. You and I both know Armani, right?
We know Armani.
Bulgari.
I have all kinds of Armani suits in my. No, I don't have any.
Bulgari. I definitely know. You seemed a little bit iffy on Bulgari.
Yeah, I'm not quite familiar there.
Okay, and then you and I had no idea on Cartel.
Cartel. Kartell.
Sorry guys. I apparently don't know fashion that I guess 2 out of 3 ain't bad because
slipping in the meatloaf reference. Look at you. Podcast at Motor One, folks. Email us and tell us what the Cartel is. Kartell.
Yeah, if you know about Cartel and they make cool stuff, tell me because I'm not saying I don't like them and I'm not saying I just don't know that brand. Armani. Yes, Bulgari. Yes, Cartel. Sorry, Cartel. I don't know who you are.
But they're responsible for 3 rather flashy Fiat 500s that you can see from November 18th to November 27th at the LA Auto Show. in the Los Angeles Convention Center, Los Angeles, California. So yeah, a little bit of Fiat news there. I'm happy to see the electric, the 500e. It feels like, and we're gonna get to more on this later. I don't really understand why we're seeing such long lead times from electric vehicle announcements to on sale dates.
Especially in this case, because like you said, this is a vehicle that debuted in Europe in 2020. I don't understand why we're getting it here in the first quarter of 2024.
Mm-hmm. I mean,
I don't quite get, like, I don't understand. And I'm not an engineer. Maybe there's something that needs to be changed. Full disclosure, like, hey, I don't quite understand, but I don't get it.
Yeah. I mean, is it a cost thing? Is it okay? Well, we're going to have this out and the technology is going to be ready. We're just trying to fine tune it. And good question. If you're listening out there and you know the answer, let us know. Podcast@motor1.com.
Yeah. I just don't know, nothing against the vehicle. It looks cool. I kind of like the way the new Fiat 500 electric looks. It looks kind of cool. I
think it has a great presence. Great presence.
I don't know why it's taking so long to get to the United States.
Mm-hmm. But hey, be happy when it gets here. What else we got, Bruce? We're getting a little long in the podcast, and we still got a list, man. LA Auto Show is hopping this year.
Well, hold on. I got to close some stuff. I got to open other stuff. You're just rushing me around, man. You're just rushing me.
So we're jumping over to Subaru at this point.
We are, yes.
We're jumping over to Subaru. Well, let me flip over to that page for Subaru, because as we're recording this podcast, you've heard us say this before, on Wednesday, these have all debuted by the time you're hearing this, theoretically on Friday or at any point thereafter. For us, the new 2024 Subaru Impreza debuts tomorrow as we're recording. Mm-hmm. And we don't have anything written on it yet. So we've been kind of pulling in some bits and pieces to make sure we're up to speed. This is the 6th generation Subaru Impreza. It's a 5-door only for 2024. There are 3 trim levels: base, sport, and are you ready for this? RS. Yes, there is a new Subaru Impreza RS, and it's even a 2.5 RS. That's kind of neat. I'm kind of happy to see that. I remember
it's nice
when
to have that name back, certainly. Yeah.
I mean, they're not calling it the 2.5 RS. They're just calling it RS.
But it is an RS with a 2.5 liter engine. So
right.
You and I can call it a 2.5 RS.
Okay. I mean, and that's an important distinction. The RS is the range topping trim here. It gets Subaru's 2.5 liter flat 4, 182 horsepower, 178 pound-feet of torque. The base model and the sport model, yes, that has the 2-liter,
52 horsepower, 145 pound-feet of torque.
It's the smaller engine. It's the 2-liter, a little bit less power. All of them get a version, and Subaru doesn't really go into detail on this. They just say they get a version of the electronic steering rack from the WRX for a more sporty feel. Don't exactly know what that means, but there is a little bit of a Rex connection there. Of course, Impreza, I mean, WRX, they used to be the same vehicle. Hasn't been that way for a little while. Right. They also all have a CVT, although on the sports and the RS models, trim level, Subaru does say you can get the 8-speed manual mode that simulates it simulates gears on the CVT, which I'll just say and leave it at that. This is built on Subaru's global platform. They say this is 10% stiffer, improved dynamic performance, smoother ride. It makes it quieter. RS model, obviously you get the RS badges, you get 18-inch gray wheels, you get some more gray trim, you get side spoilers, side mirrors, upgraded LED lights. It looks a little sportier. Standard across the entire line is Subaru EyeSight driver assist. That's basically your automatic emergency braking system. For the first time in the Impreza, you can get an 11.6-inch Starlink infotainment screen. Subaru doesn't tell us what the base screen is, but that's the largest.
I'd be shocked if it's the dual 7-inch screens from the other models, but we'll see.
Could very well be. I'm just going down my list here.
I know, man.
Only available in the 5-door. Styling wise,
It looks a whole lot like the current one.
it looks
Like,
a lot like the current one. I mean, if you
you
take
could-
if you take the
other
current
than the
one,
front end, you could tell someone this
Right.
was the current one, and I
Yeah.
don't think you would.
well, and
Cool.
even then, the front end. I mean, if you know what the WRX, the new WRX looks like, or the current one, a lot of similarity there with the grille design, with the headlight design, as you would expect, because I mean they are still pretty close in nature. Yeah, there's. I mean, I feel like this should be an important vehicle for Subaru, but I mean, looking at the photos and the release, I just feel like phoning it in isn't the right answer. I mean, there's more going on here than that. But it feels like their attention is elsewhere. Maybe, I don't know. I feel like the Impreza has always been a very important vehicle for Subaru, and I'm just wondering if they're feeling that it's as important as maybe the rest of us think. I don't know. What do you think, Bruce? Crickets.
No,
What are the
it's
crickets
not that. It's not that. I think Subaru is in a transition point right now, and so
You're right.
this is full disclosure. And Smith, I don't even know if you know this because it happened while you were on vacation. I now own a 2023 Subaru Outback.
Oh, you do?
I do.
I did not know this. Why did you keep this from me, man? I feel betrayed. Okay, I'm over it. Tell me about it.
My wife and I really like it, honestly. My wife and I, it's a really nice car. Like, and it's interesting from looking at this interior and from the first thing that I'm getting, not so much from the seats, not so much from the seats and stuff like that, but the instrument cluster, the infotainment system, and the gauge display, I'm pretty sure are exactly the same parts from the Outback. Okay. And so I think about this from maybe a different perspective, is that if you needed a less expensive vehicle, but wanted some of kind of the nicer stuff, this might be a way to go. I don't know how competitive it is in the actual segment, though.
Right. And that's something that we'll probably have to wait on. Obviously, price is going to matter significantly.
Price is going to matter a lot.
And we don't have that information yet. But Subaru says this will be in dealerships next spring. So, I mean, it's mid-November now, folks. We don't have long to wait before we get all the information on this. As a Subaru fan for many years, I'll just say I'm interested to see where they go from here.
Yeah, so I gotta be. I could pull the camera out and take it. I have literally, if I took you out to my garage right now, I have 2 Subarus in there. So you can't call me not a Subaru fan.
You're the guy.
I literally
You're
own
the
2 of
guy.
them. One of them's paid off, and the other one I'm financing for a few years. Like, I own 2 Subarus. Like, so I'm a fan of the brand. I just feel like they're in this really interesting transition point. And I wonder where it's going to go, because they're smaller vehicles. You and I kind of talked about this, where the Crosstrek, the new Crosstrek, looks borderline identical to the old one. Mm-hmm. You and I have talked about the Solterra and how it's essentially a rebadged BZ4X. There's no surprise here that the BRZ, from my mind, the Toyota version is escaping my mind right now.
Oh, the 86.
Yes, the Toyota 86. Those are very similar vehicles. And it just seems like Toyota is saving their money up for something. And I don't know what that something is, that they're sharing some things with Toyota, that they're making vehicles like this Crosstrek and the Impreza that are, don't have a lot of changes, but have changes where they think buyers would want them. I just wonder where things are going to go. And like I just said, my wife and I, we really like our new Outback. And I wonder if that, because it's one of their best selling products, I wonder if that's where they're putting their money, that they're like, we're going to invest in Foresters and Outbacks and everything else. We'll do what we need to do to those vehicles, but Foresters and Outbacks are where we're going to put our money. I don't know. It's an interesting place to be.
Well, if I had to guess, and I do, they're probably pulling back a little bit because we know SUVs, crossovers, that's where everybody's going. A lot of automakers have dropped vehicles like the Impreza. They're just not making those at all.
Ford, Chevy don't have a competitor. Dodge doesn't have a competitor.
So here's Subaru. Okay, how much do we want to put into this? Are people going to continue to be interested in these vehicles? Is it worth our time? That could be I think that could be the transition period that you're talking about. So we'll see where it goes from there. Here's just a quick little segue. Where do you think it's going, folks? Email us podcast@motor1.com.
Honestly,
email us podcast@motor1.com. You can always comment on our videos that go up. Motor One Podcast on YouTube every Friday. Articles that go up at motor1.com every Friday. You can comment there. You should be going to motor1.com anyways, every single day to read about all of the current automotive news happening. We have an LA Auto Show preview. We have articles on every single vehicle we're talking about here today. And even some that we aren't going to talk about today that were at the LA Auto Show. Check it out, motor1.com. Let's keep right on trucking here, Bruce. We've covered Toyota. We've covered Porsche. We've covered Fiat. We've covered Subaru.
Let's go to some newer brands. We have two newer brands that we kind of want to finish things off with.
Okay.
The first of those is Lucid. Lucid is most famous these days for the Air, but they just announced that their first SUV is coming in 2024, and that is called the Gravity.
Lucid Gravity.
Yep. Reservations are going to open in early 2023, but deliveries aren't going to start until 2024. So we can kind of wait and see about that. It's going to be set. It's going to have 7 seats and
7 seats, configurable also for 5 for just 2-row, or configurable for 6 passenger with some quad captains.
Yes,
I'd love to tell you more about it, but this announcement, it's going along with Lucid debuting 2 new trim levels of the Air. But I mean, this is a big deal, and we'll talk about those Air trims here in a second. Of course, Lucid famously, they stepped in first with a sedan at a point when everybody's going SUV. Okay, Lucid, when are you going to do an SUV? I think it was 2020 when Project Gravity was mentioned, something to that effect, or 2021. It's been a little while.
Passing though, like they were,
it was mentioned in passing, and now here it comes. And we're looking at pictures of it. We do have pictures of it on YouTube Motor One Podcast, pictures in the article. It's a preview of what's to come. Lucid says they are still finalizing statistics. They are still finalizing some of the design features. So the vehicle that we're talking about today could be a little different when it eventually goes on sale. We don't have a specific date of when that's going to happen, but Lucid does say reservations are going to start next year, and there should be more information at that point. Can I
give my personal opinion, and it might hurt a little for any Lucid folks out there? Maybe not, depending on your personal feelings.
I don't know, Ramblers. What do you think? Everybody stomp your feet right now. Yeah, that's not going to work. No. Go ahead, Bruce.
This looks like a Lucid Air wagon that they raised the suspension height of. Just judging from the images we have so far. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but it looks a lot like a Lucid Air wagon with a raised suspension. And there's nothing wrong with that, because I own a Subaru Outback, which is a legacy. That's a wagon and a raised suspension. So I'm not judging you. Like, there's no judgment, but calling it an SUV is like, is it an SUV or is it an Air wagon?
Well, and it's also worth pointing out, we have photos, and I mean, these aren't necessarily shadowed full-on teaser photos, but there isn't one specific clear photo that just gives us a really good, I mean, like, there isn't a nice front 3/4 shot lighted properly. I mean, there are a couple full vehicle shots.
Right. The image that we have paused right here is that like
looking top down onto the roof, which is
that
a glass
looks like
roof.
a Lucid Air wagon, and there's nothing wrong with being a Lucid Air wagon. That's not a criticism, but calling things an SUV or a crossover versus just a wagon with a lifted suspension is always interesting to me.
Right. And I mean, I'm curious to see more about it. Obviously, Lucid has the attention of people right now. That's a good segue to talk about those other two Lucid Air trims that are debuting for the LA Auto Show. And these are I think these are of probably greater significance than when they launched with their insane, 1,000 horsepower model, and even the Sapphire that they've come out with since. This is the 2023 Lucid Air Pure and the Lucid Air Touring. These slot on the lower end of the spectrum. The Lucid Air Pure actually starts under $100,000. It launches first with a dual motor all-wheel drive Air Pure that costs $92,000, and that's not cheap by any means, but that makes this far more competitive to other Model S, Tesla Model S trims, the Porsche Taycan. And with this, you're getting 410 miles of range still. You're getting 410 miles of range, and horsepower, I believe, is 480 still.
Correct.
Let me double check that.
Yep. Yeah.
So, I mean, you're still getting a lot of power. You're still getting, I think, what's going to be the best range in this segment at 410 miles. And that's an EPA estimated. That's not the automaker saying that. That's EPA estimated. And that's 92,000. There's going to be an even cheaper one yet. The Lucid Air Pure single motor rear wheel drive only. That's going to be $87,000, but we don't have information on that yet. The Air Pure launches first with the all-wheel drive version. Now, the next step up from that is the Lucid Air Touring. That starts at $107,000, $107,400 to be exact. But you're stepping up to 620 horsepower there, which is a lot. That's 0 to 60 in 3.4 seconds. And actually, it's supposed to use the same battery, but through some sort of witchcraft that I don't quite understand, EPA estimated range on this is up to 425 miles. So now we have cars, high 5-figure, low 6-figure range, which a lot of people are looking at now these days, with some impressive range on the battery and definitely impressive horsepower. The Lucid Air Pure, you get the aluminum roof on that. You don't get the see-through roof. The trim inside, it's still a handsome vehicle inside, but it's not quite as flashy. The Touring, I believe Lucid called the Touring the quintessential Air. And I think they expect a lot of people are going to be going for that model. That has also the aluminum roof is standard, but you can get the glass roof as an option. It has nicer materials inside, the Napa leather, so forth. And again, the extra horsepower and a little more range. And I think these are going to be very, very important vehicles for Lucid.
Oh, definitely. I think that's safe. Especially, maybe it's just you now live in the northern part of the lower peninsula of Michigan.
Yes.
I live in northwestern Ohio. There are affluent people in our area, but these are not the most affluent areas of the country.
Right.
6-figure vehicles are still kind of a rare sight for me. And maybe I'm assuming too much, but I'm guessing for your area too.
The other day I was out on I-75 on the highway. There's like 3 other cars out there, and one of them was a Model S Plaid.
Okay. So maybe I'm wrong. Okay.
There's a little bit of money up here.
No, but
it's not with me. I can tell you that. It's not with me, but
but I still feel like that 5 figures, even if it's high 5 figures, it's much more attainable to so many more people.
Yep.
And the fact that Lucid is, they started out in the 200,000 with the
they were like the 1%. Okay, this is just the bonkers car.
They've moved farther down from that, and so now it's realistically attainable if you're a doctor or a lawyer. You know, if you have if you're an affluent person but not super crazy, baron of industry or something like that you could own a vehicle like this. And they seem to be fairly good. Like, this seems to be a true Tesla competitor, a true competitor against a lot of the EVs out there. And it's nice to see that this option exists, that it's not a one or done thing, that there are, you could consider a Tesla, you could consider a Lucid, you can consider a GMC SUV or Hummer SUV or things like that.
Well, I mean, think about this, Bruce. I mean, how many like Yukon Denali's, Cadillac Escalades do you see floating around your area? Those are
certainly a handful.
Those are $70,000 to $90,000, $100,000 vehicles.
Exactly, and this is that here. Same. Yeah, exactly.
Right here with over 400 miles of range and 480 horsepower. So, bravo, Lucid. I really hope that see that succeed. I think it's an attractive car, and to have one at a lower price point, very important vehicle for them.
Mm-hmm.
Very important.
Speaking of a vaguely important vehicle, a vaguely important EV to a not so important, or not so not important, not so affordable EV. I apologize.
Before you go there, I need to call an audible of my own.
Oh, okay. Go for it, man.
Because I forgot to mention perhaps the happiest vehicle that is debuting at the LA Auto Show. Let me present to you, as I try to share my screen.
This is going to be a surprise to me, I think. Maybe, possibly. Okay.
We
talked about this before the show, but okay.
The Genesis X convertible concept at the LA Auto Show. My headline, I was very happy that my headline kind of caught on with some people. Because I said Genesis X convertible concept debuts a happy face at LA Auto Show. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. If you're familiar with the the X Speedium Coupe concept, this is basically that concept from earlier this year, just with no roof. It has a retractable hardtop that, interestingly, has its own moonroof inside. So even when the roof is up, you can still look up at the starry sky or the blue sky, wherever you happen to be. The rest of it is pretty much right in line with the Speedium Coupe concept. It's got that driver focus, that driver centric cockpit. But it's the third of this trilogy. Genesis says it will be the last one that they do in this trilogy. And I mean, we're looking at it here with the top up. I mean, it's a neat looking car. We don't know anything about the powertrain. Obviously, it's an EV. But the grille up front, of course, there is no grille because it's an EV, but the Lexus dual light motif that goes across the front, it breaks down into the Genesis crest.
The Lexus dual light motif.
What did I say Lexus? I meant Genesis.
You did. Okay, no problem.
Still, thank you. I still haven't adjusted to Eastern time. I don't know how you crazy people watch news at 11 p.m. at night. I have to get my news at 9. But yes, the Genesis dual light motif that breaks down into the Genesis crest at the front. It's the happiest vehicle at the LA Auto Show. It's got a neat interior. Will this ever go into production? I mean, Genesis is always they've always been cagey on that. Their X series of concepts, they've said repeatedly, they've said design language, things of that nature. I think that's code for saying, yeah, we're looking at this. You might see some of these features that come into other vehicles, but as far as something exactly like this or pretty close, probably not. But hey, just another thing to see at the 2022 LA Auto Show. And I'm a convertible guy. I've got a convertible in the garage. Mm-hmm. I would like to see more larger convertibles.
I agree.
And I mean, not everything has to be a Miata with just a couple seats, or even a Mustang with some smaller seats in the back. Bring back some larger drop tops. Let's do it.
So, Let me call my own audible for a conversation I've been thinking about literally for years. Do you think that with the proliferation of carbon fiber and other composite materials, do you think we'll see a 4-door convertible vehicle again? Let's call it the next 10 years.
No.
And it's not because
it's not because of materials. It's because I don't think anybody wants one. I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that,
I don't know about that.
I don't know if that's the right way to say it. I would like a big convertible, but a big 4-door convertible, I don't know that it makes sense to me. And I'm a convertible fan. I mean, in my mind,
I don't.
In my mind, when you put multiple doors on a convertible, it looks weird. And with
the suicide door Lincoln Continental looks good, and you will never convince me otherwise.
It doesn't not look good. Doesn't not look good. I don't know how to phrase that.
No, sir.
Sorry, I was never a big fan. Not necessarily because of the doors. I just wasn't a big fan of that era Continental. No, I think the body lines of a convertible are just, they get broken if it's more than 2 doors. And with cars giving way to SUVs and crossovers, I think in the next 10 years, just about anything left with 4 doors will be an SUV or a crossover. The only thing else you're going to have, you might have a handful of just little hatchbacks, or just, little smaller sport coupes like a Mustang or something like that. Mm-hmm. The days, I mean, like, okay, how about a Cadillac Celestiq convertible?
Yeah, I'm on board. Yeah,
I think even
that would be a 2-door. I'm on board.
That would be sweet. Something that big, that dramatic. Yeah, like some of the big Bentleys that we see. But I don't think it's an issue of materials. I think it's just an issue of, only Chris Bruce is going to buy one. But you can't. You just bought a Subaru. I can't believe you didn't tell me that you bought a new Subaru.
You were gone.
I've been back this is 2 weeks now. Going on 2 weeks.
Okay, you're right. Well,
anyway.
Let's finish this show out.
Let's wrap this up. We've got one more to talk about. You want to set it up?
I will, sure. Let me get some photos going here. And so this is the Drako Dragon crossover. And my wife and I were actually talking about this vehicle beforehand because she thought it was hilarious. So the high school I went to, our mascot was actually called Drako the Dragon.
Really? Did Drako the Dragon have gull-wing doors?
He did not. He was my best friend dressed up in a fur suit doing dances at football games. Well, this particular Drako Dragon does have gull-wing doors. Yes, we did say it's a crossover. It is a rather swoopy, kind of edgy crossover. Of course, if you're familiar with the Drako GTE, that kind of had some ties to the Karma. The Drako GTE, superb, I think 1,200 horsepower electric supercar. This is their 2,000 horsepower.
2,000 horsepower.
Which sounds like that still seems like a fake number to me. My wife and I were talking about this. I'm like, your new Subaru has 270 horsepower. This has 2,000 horsepower. It just feels like a fake number of horsepower.
I mean, it can feel that way. What's the Rimac Navara have for power? The Rimac. Sorry, I've called it Rimac for years. It's going to be so hard to change. But I mean, okay. Well, let's stick to the Drako here. It has a quad motor powertrain, so it's got an electric motor for each wheel, and that's why I made that comparison because. When you start talking about electric hypercars like that, 2,000 seems kind of crazy, but that's what they're putting out. I mean, we're able to get close to that figure now. That's what Drako says the Dragon is going to be. Quad motor, 2,000 combined horsepower. They say 0 to 60 in 1.9 seconds. That's totally going to depend on traction.
Right.
It's totally going to depend on traction. They're saying a quarter mile in about 9 seconds. Again, that'll totally depend on traction.
Totally depend. That's going to take a prep track, I would bet.
I would assume. Top speed 200 plus. And here's where it gets interesting. As if the gull wing doors and 2,000 horsepower wasn't already territory. They're estimating a range on this of 420 miles.
That wasn't what I thought you were going to say was interesting about it, but okay.
With that kind of performance, estimated range of 420 miles. They're saying it has 500 kilowatt fast charge capability, so it can get 80% recharged in 10 minutes, which with a 420 mile range is something like 330 something, somewhere in there in about 10 minutes. It has, and this is it. Okay, maybe this is what you were thinking about. Interesting, Bruce. The front of this has.
Nope, that's not the number I was thinking about.
Oh yeah. Oh, I know the number you're. We'll get to that interesting number at the
number
end.
I was thinking about ends in a 6. Let's put it that way.
We have to. Okay, that's another number. We have some interesting numbers to talk about, folks, but we're going to hold that to the end to make sure you stick around until the very end of the podcast. What I found interesting at the front, the very front face, it actually has a wing there with a sloped hood, like the Dodge Charger Daytona SRT concept. So it does. I mean, it's designed to funnel air up and over the vehicle while also being an efficient design and adding downforce. It has 2 flying buttresses at the rear, basically in those rear pillars that allows air to go through. Of course, it has those 2 massive gull wing doors that open up. They're power operated. The result of that is you have no B pillar. So the visibility on the interior is said to be really good, and you have easy access to the front seats and the rear seats. The interior, kind of a minimalist theme. There are quite a few buttons. Yeah. There are some buttons on the steering wheel, but I mean, it's got a big center touch screen, 17.1 inch center touch screen.
I would say high quality materials, but minimalist aesthetic.
Yeah, it looks high quality,
very nice materials, but not a lot of them in order to focus the driver.
It looks high quality. The look on the outside. I mean, if you were to look at that, Bruce, and you didn't know exactly what it was, would you not think it was some sort of Lamborghini? Because that's the impression I get right away.
I was going to say Lamborghini. Yeah.
I mean, it's not bonkers necessarily like a Lamborghini, but it just has sort of that low, wide kind of flared out rear fenders with some edgy panels. It just has a little bit of that presence. Mm-hmm. The interior, like we said, it looks fairly attractive on the interior. This is strictly going to be a 5-passenger vehicle. No 7-seater on this one. It's 4,969 pounds, which actually
by EV standards isn't that bad.
That's not bad. If it has a big enough battery for a 420 mile estimated range. Now Drako says. They say this is the first SUV or crossover to use a full carbon structure for its body, which cuts a lot of weight down, obviously, adds to performance. By comparison, I think I looked up a Tesla Model X is, I think, around 5,300 pounds or so. So, I mean, it's coming in a little under the Model X with a lot more, with almost double the horsepower of a Plaid. So, I mean, that gives you an idea. Even if it's not 2,000, if it ends up being a little bit less, should still be an incredible performer. And I also want to point out the images that we have. A lot of times for vehicles like this, we'll get like just renderings of the vehicle. This is an actual vehicle.
Mm-hmm.
This is an actual vehicle. So it's legit. The reason I say that is because deliveries start in 2026. So there's your number ending in 6, Bruce. We are still a few years away from seeing this come to life.
I'm going to be generous. We're almost at 2023 right now. That's 3. And I'll even give us 3+ years away. That's a long time to wait for a vehicle. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong. But I mean, in their defense too, I mean, we also don't have full information on this yet. So
No, exactly.
So yeah. I suspect there are still some things in development, obviously.
Absolutely. And like you said, they do have a vehicle to show people.
Right.
You know, there is something to show. These are not pure renderings.
Mm-hmm.
But consumer deliveries do not begin until 2026.
Until 2026. Price is also a little bit up there, but not as, I don't think it's as bad as you would think for something with 2,000 horsepower.
No.
$290,000 is the price. So, I mean, obviously this is going to be a high-end SUV.
Right.
And you certainly can't call it a bargain at that price. But when you when you look at something that's basically going to run with the fastest production vehicles in the world, be an SUV, you know, I'm curious to see where it goes from here. Yes, 2026, a little bit of a wait before it gets here. I hope everything stays on track. It looks to have a lot of tech installed. Drako said that they have everything running through one ECU as opposed to different computer modules running different things. I'm curious to see how that plays out because they have a lot of tech going on in there. It has cameras for side mirrors, and this is something that I actually asked them directly about because, to the best of my knowledge, that's not legal in the US yet. They said when this goes on sale, if it's still not legal in the US, yes, they have a version developed with regular mirrors. And this is being built in the United States too. Designed in Italy, being built in the United States.
The Los Angeles area, right?
They are ramping up, they say, to go for a target of 5,000 units a year. That's an ambitious target for a $290,000, 2,000 horsepower SUV, but that's what they're going for. 2026 when delivery starts. For the record, I think this is cool as hell.
Oh, I agree. I don't mean to say it's not. It's
and I don't think it's even really priced.
Anytime a vehicle gets announced and the wait is so long, it automatically just makes you wonder, like, really? It's just such a long wait for something that you just have to. It gets your mind spent. Like, how much can the world change within that time period? That you're not wrong. That's the thing that happens in my mind.
Nope.
Like,
you're not wrong.
But the fact that they have a real vehicle at least says that they're somewhat serious about this. Like,
right. That's better. That's better than a lot of
we have
other
seen vehicles that are just purely renderings. You and I both have known we've done this long enough. I've written about vehicles that are purely renderings.
Yes, there are some companies that have like 6 or 7 vehicles they're taking deposits on, and all they have are renderings.
Exactly. So
so already
it's a long wait, but I mean, it's a slightly different thing, but our coworker Adrian and I were talking about. It took 5 years for the AMG 1 to finally enter production from when we first saw it. So, sometimes these long waits happen, but still, it's a long wait. That's the thing.
Long waits. From my vantage point so far, hopefully, it looks like it'll be worth the wait. But what do you think? Podcast@Motor1 is our email. You've heard me say it a gazillion times. I'm going to keep saying it because we like emails. And we did get some great emails here over the last week. We have some good comments. Apologies that we're not going to have time this week. We should have some time next week. But with the LA Auto Show happening and being as robust as it is this year, we just had to kind of dedicate all of our time to that. So email us, podcast@motor1.com. Listen to us on Spotify, Google, Apple, a dozen or so audio podcasts that we're on. We're on YouTube, Motor One Podcast. Our articles go up every Friday, motor1.com. That gives you a little preview of what we're talking about in case you don't want to listen to all the way through, but you should listen to all the way through because sometimes we know what we're talking about, right?
I hope people
that was
that
was not a reassuring move.
Well, I suffer from imposter syndrome. I never think I should be here. So yeah.
Nah, you're doing all right. I suspect maybe I am too. A little bit. I don't know. Email us and tell us what
try
you
our
think.
best.
You guys are idiots. That's okay. You can send us that email. That's fair.
Yeah, if that's what the way things go, that's fine. Hey, so real quick, I do want to say comments. Eric, we got your email today. Again, Eric, thank you so much for sending us such long emails. We're just kind of running out of time. Your emails are appreciated, and I want to tell you, I read every word of them. I honestly do. But we can't read them all, because if I read them all, it would be an entire episode. But
we will get to parts. We will get to parts of it.
Yeah, but I do appreciate it, and I appreciate you sending us emails. So thank you so much for that.
And also, we still need to get to 400 subscribers. Come on. I have my bottle, and if you're a fan of Hot Ones on YouTube, you know what I'm talking about. I have my bottle of Los Calientes Rojo. Or no, Los Calientes Verde.
Oh, and the green hot, right?
And when we get to the green hot, and when we get to 400, a little bit of that's going in a shot glass, and you can watch me in complete agony. Or if you're listening on audio, trust me, you'll hear me in complete agony. But we'll do it for 400.
Cool. Well, I will try to find something to be in as much agony as Smith. Just I'm not a masochist. I want us both to be there. That I think that's the show for tonight. Good afternoon, good evening, or tonight. Sorry that sounds so questionable. It's just,
there's a lot going on.
Smith, are we missing something? I feel like we're missing something, and
I'm sure we are. Well, I mean, we can mention that. Okay, Hyundai is debuting their North American debut of the Ioniq 6. Kia has the North American debut of their Seltos. I mean, these are vehicles we've seen before. Right. It's just they're debuting in North America for the first time. And like I said, as we're recording this, these debuts are happening right now. In fact, I'm looking at the clock, and I have some work to do here in about a half hour to plug things through to make sure everything is nice and neat on motor1.com when you go to click on the articles to read them. So yeah, there's a lot going on this week.
Okay. Well, we better shut this down then. Well, for all of you listening, we appreciate you. Good afternoon, good evening, or good night. We are closing in on 2 full years of episodes. I was realizing that as I typed in our episode. We're at 98 episodes. We haven't missed a week yet,
Not 1 week.
And I hope that continues, through going forward. This is always fun. It's always fun to talk to Smith about what's going on in car world, because we don't really get to do that at work, which is surprising because, we're both working and our whole team is working. So we don't get to kind of take an hour or an hour and 15 minutes and just talk about stuff. So
it's great. The podcast is great. Sometimes you learn that your good friend bought a brand new car and didn't tell you.
Exactly. Yeah. Big surprises. But with that, good afternoon, good evening, or good night. I know I already said that, but I'm going to do it again. And goodbye, everybody. And we will talk to you later. So bye-bye.
Bye.